Year in and year out, the Alabama Crimson Tide have big-time classes coming in, and they currently check in at number 1 for 2019 as of February 1st, and they pretty much have that spot locked up. Since 2009, Alabama has had 2 running backs win the Heisman Trophy, and a dude they got signed for the class of 2019 will have a chance to add his name to the list in IMG Academy's Trey Sanders. The 5-star signee checks in as the number 1 running back in the country, and when you see his tape, it's easy to see why, and he always balled out when he played against the best competition. The Tide also have Keilan Robinson for the class of 2019. He still hasn't signed yet, but if he does, it would be a huge addition for Saban because just like Sanders, he always showed up against big-time competition playing for St. John's. A couple of quarterbacks with family ties to Alabama are already enrolled. Taulia Tagovailoa, the younger brother of Tua, had a huge senior season for Thompson, leading them to its first state title game appearance since 1982, and Bear Bryant's great-grandson, Paul Tyson, is also enrolled at Alabama. He threw for 3,000 plus yards in back-to-back years for Hewitt-Trussville to go with 69 touchdowns. Expect both them to compete for the number 1 backup spot with Jalen Hurts' departure to Oklahoma. The Crimson Tide are always loaded in the trenches, and things aren't any different for the class of 2019. They have 5 offensive linemen who check in the top 300 overall, led by IMG Academy's Evan Neal. The 6'7", 360-pound 5-star checks in as the number 1 tackle in the country. Joining Neal is Hewitt-Trussville's Pierce Quick, Thompson's Amari Kite, St. Francis Academy's Darian Dalcourt, and one of the best prospects from Kentucky, Tanner Bowles. The defensive line is one of the strongest, if not the strongest, positions for the Tide for the class of 2019, led by 5-star Antonio Alfano, who jumped to number 1 overall on Barton Simmons player rankings. Joining Alfano is 3 of the best prospects from Georgia: Justin Abogbe, Kevin Harris, and King Makuta. Clay Chalkville's DJ Dell is already enrolled at Bama, and St. Thomas Aquinas' 4-star defensive end Braylon Ingram signed his letter of intent back during the first signing day period to give Nick Saban a big-time defensive line coming in. And if they can keep Cardinal Gibbons' 4-star Chris Bogle and West Jones' 4-star Byron Young, who are both committed but haven't signed yet, that would ensure the Tide of holding down the number 1 spot for the 2019 recruiting class. The second level is led by St. Francis Academy's 4-star linebacker Shane Lee, who could easily be a 5-star. He led one of the nastiest defenses in high school football last year, and expect Lee to join some of the past great linebackers that have suited up for Alabama. The other big-time linebacker they got coming in 2019 is University Labs' Christian Harris. He's one of the most versatile players in the country. He lined up everywhere and made an impact no matter where he played. The Tide also got 5 legit defensive backs already enrolled or signed for the class of 2019 who all check in the top 130 overall on 24/7 Sports. DeMathis DeMarco Helms played a national schedule every season for the DMV Power, and he always lined up against the best competition and balled out. The same goes for St. Thomas Aquinas' Jordan Battle, and both him and Helms are 2 of the best safety prospects in the country, and expect them to be impact players early on for Saban. A couple of big-time dudes from Texas are ready to show out in the SEC: Mansfield Legacy's Jeffrey Carter and Duquesne's Marcus Banks, and they also have one of the best prospects from Mississippi already signed in Lafayette's 4-star corner Brandon Turnage. Alabama's also adding a couple of weapons at the skill position set in Jaleel Billingsley and John Mechie. Billingsley is a big-time prospect out of Chicago and checks in as the number 3 tight end in the country, and Mechie is a top 10 player from Jersey and a top 300 guy overall. One of the best players in this class of 2019 for Nick Saban could very well be Hoover's Will Reichard. The kicking game has been an issue for Alabama, and there's a good chance they won't have to worry about that anymore after adding the number 1 kicker from the class of 2019. If Alabama finishes at the number 1 spot for this recruiting class, it would be the 8th time in the last 9 years they have the top class, and so far the Tide already have 3 5-stars and 24 4-stars, so expect them to hold down the number 1 spot.